Thanks everyone for taking time out of your schedules to attend this session. I hope everyone can hear me clearly. We seem to have got at least most of our participants join, and anyone who joins late, we will actually be recording this session, so we'll be posting that on YouTube, and we can provide the links to anyone who may have missed part of the session. So I've got with me today Craig Medlin, who's the Technical Sales Manager for Phocas. Craig will be taking us through the content today, and Craig's been with Phocas for as long as I've been working with him, and is very knowledgeable and helpful on the product. I am the Professional Services Director at Leverage Technologies. Most of you should know me. I work with primarily SAP Business One and look after the customers, the consulting, and products like Phocas, the complementary products that extend the functionality and capability of SAP Business One. So Leverage Technologies partners with Phocas and have done for some time now. Phocas provide powerful analytics and visualization tools to simplify data management and allow you to interact with your data. Some of you may have attended our seminar in October last year, and that session largely targeted the Phocas sales, purchases and inventory capabilities. Whilst Phocas has always had financial analytics capabilities, and we showed some of that last year, the solution has recently been extended and enhanced in this area. So today we're going to have a look in more detail at the financial analytics capabilities and also at the new budgeting and forecast features, which I'm sure you'll find really interesting. One of the things we particularly like about Phocas is that there is an existing connector and a pre-built data set for each of the functional areas I've described, but that can be modified and enhanced to suit your needs, and we frequently do that. For example, many of you will have user-defined fields that provide additional meaning to your data. Some of you may use cost centers and dimensions and other attributes that not all of you will. And so there is always a bit of a configuration and massage process to make the solution work directly for you. For today, I've already mentioned that we'll be recording the session. We'll go for about 30 minutes, just having a look at the products. There's a Q&A panel. Please feel free to put any questions into the Q&A panel, and I promise to revisit them at the end, time permitting. And of course, anything that we don't manage to get to or that you need additional data on, we can always set up another session, a more detailed session, or I can come back to you after the seminar ends to go through it in more detail. So without holding things up any further, I think I'm going to hand right over to Craig to take you through the solution and start showing us what it looks like. Thanks, Craig.
No worries. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Warren, for the introduction. I appreciate everyone's time today to have a look at what we have to offer, and I really do encourage you to ask questions as we're going along. So, as Warren said, we're going to spend 30-ish minutes taking you through the product, but we've just got a little bit of scene setting and a bit more of an introduction to what we're really going to be showing you. So today's agenda is we'll talk about where our financial product actually fits in your organization, what you can use it to do. We're going to show you introduce you to budgeting and forecasting, take you through a live demo of the product, as well as answer any questions that you might have in the session. But like Warren mentioned, we're happy to take those questions whenever you want through the session. Anything we don't get to, we'll get to you after the session, time permitting. So first things first, let's set the scene of why this product has been developed and how it actually matters for your business, and not just what it can do, but what it might be able to save you in terms of time or errors or costs. So let's actually set the scene by looking at what people currently are doing. So I'm sure this particular visualization we have at the moment looks fairly familiar to a lot of people. We have our SAP accounting system sitting at the top of the tree, and we've got our finance team that are normally inputting data into that system on a regular basis. Sometimes it's during the month, sometimes it's all lumped at the end of the month. But whichever way, data is flowing into the ERP system, and then it's really up to the finance team to pull some of that data back out and massage that data to make it fit for purpose. And fit for purpose could be tailoring it to the particular person or the particular function in our business, whether it's the CEO, head of sales, whatever the case may be. And those users get a copy of the data, and they might have questions that come up, but they're unable to really answer the questions in the report they've been given. So that information is required from somebody above them to get that data from the finance team. So we're doing a lot of back and forth to try and get this data to the people that need it in some sort of timely manner. So quite manual, often uses spreadsheets or very basic reports that the finance team are really the only ones that can control. So the business is really having to wait for them to make decisions. So it can actually add a lot of time and potential cost on decision making. Now, Phocas's approach to this is quite different. We know that SAP is where all your data lives. It's the center of your data universe in your organization. So our approach is to really fit the Phocas products around your ERP system. So we're able to pull the data automatically. As Warren mentioned, we've got standard integrations for the products, including customizations that you may have had made. So we're able to get the data out of SAP in a format that that is very easy for people to use. And what that actually means is those same people that were requesting reports from the CFO or waiting for the end of month report that comes 2 weeks after we close off the month in an Excel spreadsheet in an email, those same users are now able to interact with the data themselves. So they're able to get the data, have a question, and answer that question themselves in a read-only way. So freeing up our financial team to do all their own analysis, not just feeding the rest of the business. So there's a cost saving, there's an empowerment opportunity for people, and it really just cuts down on that time and also admin error. And the way we're doing that with financial statements is not just producing a report, but actually being able to analyze that data and get into the detail of it and ask questions of the data without it being a burden for anybody in the organization. We're also able to customize how we present the data to those users, because different users in our organization may need different views of, say, a P&L statement or a balance sheet. We're also able to visualize the data. So something that quite often happens with financial data is it's all completely numbers driven. It's very large spreadsheets. There's no way of visualizing that data, or not very easy ways of visualizing that data. So people that are more visual people in the organization maybe miss certain details when looking at so many numbers. Being able to visualize that data, like what we've done in previous webinars with you, where we've shown some of our sales analytics and being able to visualize that data, that same functionality exists here as well. But when you've got this level of data and this granular control of data is really important, because we could have people in our organization accessing data that they normally maybe wouldn't see. So we need to be able to control it or govern that data. So in the same tool, we're able to actually have two different people, for example, in the organization look at the same report or same statements and see what data is relevant to them. So a CEO, for example, might see everything, but a branch manager logging in may only see the data relevant to them. So they will only be able to see relevant data. They're not looking at other branches or other departments unless you want them to. And it can go right down to things like they can't see wages and commissions, or some much more personal expense lines. So you've got quite granular control what it does mean is you're able to share the data with everybody in the organization, though, making sure they only see data relevant to them. So that's our financial side, but what about budgeting? And so budgeting is the natural progression from being able to produce a statement based on the actuals you have in SAP. The next problem we often was confronted with was people actually still budgeting in a spreadsheet. You know, there's a very high percentage of spreadsheet error. That means that we could be making decisions or working to targets that somewhere along the way in building that budget out, something went wrong and there's no visibility, audits or accountability to that. So we really struggle to get that as accurate as we need to. And this visual we have on screen at the moment, I think demonstrates it really quite well of that traditional way we go about budgeting. We know we need to create a budget. We enable or we task the finance team with producing that budget. They do a whole bunch of downloading data, cutting and pasting, and a whole bunch of stuff to get the data in a way that makes sense. And then it's emailed around to a whole bunch of people, and then it's collated back together, and then it goes back up to the top. And we kind of run through this process many, many times until we get to the point that a budget is produced. This often means, because we're pulling data out, it becomes static, it's standalone, it's very linear, assumption based, because we're not connected to the data that we need to make accurate decisions. And because it's such a big job and something we're probably only doing once a year, it also becomes only retrospective. We're not really tailoring it to the situation we might be in. As we've seen with COVID, disruption to business needs to be catered for. So being able to tweak and change your budgets to reflect what we know now can be something that a lot of businesses want to do, but it's just too hard to do. So the Phocas approach, like before, is quite different. We're able to have the users interact with the Phocas tools that is actually combining data from not just our ERP system, SAP, but maybe a whole bunch of other data sources in our business, things like payroll or CRM, where we need that data to make better and more informed decisions. So what you'll see is, as opposed to something being static, we'll be more dynamic. We can collaborate. We can actually not just work on assumptions, but bring data from our actuals and continuously plan. So we can continually add to our budget, change our budget, or a version of our budget to better reflect what we know now. So this is what we're going to be going through today. And just to summarize, previously we were looking at our Phocas analytics, so looking at what you've sold, what you've purchased, what you're holding, where are the opportunities, where are the risks. Financial statements we touched on previously. We'll go a bit deeper today, where we're able to not just look at operational data in our business, but the financial part of our business as well, and being able to make sure that those that need to see that data to make informed decisions have access to that data. And we're going to be spending a bit of time in our budgeting and forecasting tool, making better budgets and forecast based on what we know. So really, we've now got a company-wide financial planning and analysis tool that's all in a single platform. So you're not kind of using drips and drabs of different solutions. It actually can be a all-encompassing, all-in-one that can be bringing data from those multiple sources together. So let's jump in and show you around. So like before, Phocas is a cloud-based product. So this will work on any internet-enabled device, iPads, tablets, even down to a phone or a screen in your office. If you'd like to show a dashboard or something like that showing your data, you absolutely can. So being browser-based means that you're always on the latest version. It's hosted. There's no requirements for you to have special servers or anything like that to have access to this. It also means that getting the data to people when they're even working at home or on the road is easier than ever. So where we're going to start is looking at our financial statements. What you can see here is a financial statement where I'm looking at my my revenue, my COGS, income, operating expenses, etc. And I've got my different calculations in here. I can compare it to a previous period as well as a budget, and actually highlighting what variances we've experienced between them. Now we can expand all these out. So if I wanted to look at my operating expenses, I can actually see right down into the detail what those actually look like. But maybe before I drill down into the individual accounts, I'd actually like to introduce another layer. So quite a lot of businesses will have multiple cost centers, multiple divisions, multiple companies that roll into our consolidated P&L. So if I actually want to include company, I can simply drag it up. So now when I'm looking at that same $9.8 million in operating expenses, I can actually see the distribution across my three businesses in this case, and drilling right down into the detail. So I can actually see that, oh geez, in Australia at least, my bad debt number is considerably higher than last year and to the budget that I had set. So if I want to know the detail behind this, I can simply click on transaction and drill down into the detail. So we don't have to run back to the ERP to find out the detail that made up a number. So when you're trying to close off the month, if you're trying to see what the journal entries are, what might be missing, missing reversal or elimination, you can get right down into the detail incredibly quick using Phocas. Everything you see is also exportable at the click of a button. We can also save this or add this to dashboards at any point. Now, this product does ship out of the box with a profit and loss, a balance sheet, a cash flow, and a trial balance. So we have these statements set up, and we will use the chart of accounts that we have defined in SAP. But you're not constrained to just that view. So like in the slides where we're talking about customizing, I can actually customize this view. But even going beyond just customizing that standard view that we might get from your ERP, we can also create entire new statements, or maybe I want to clone a statement just to make a few tweaks. So I've got two versions. So all of this functionality is here without you needing to make changes to the actual ERP system itself. And if I actually drill in to the particular statement, making changes is incredibly easy. So you can see I've got some groups and some calculations here, just like what I had on the statement itself. So revenue and COGS and income. And you can see how my calculations are derived, and I can layer them. So I work out what profit is, and I can use profit later on in other calculations. Adding calculations and groups are as easy as clicking on the ones you want to add. And once you've defined them and set them up the way you want them, you can actually come in and choose, how am I going to map this? How, for this particular statement, where do these particular accounts belong? So you can choose to have different structures for different statements that might be consumed by different audiences. So a different user can have, a branch manager may see much more detail on expense, where the shareholders or the board members may be interested in a few more ratios and calculations relating to revenue and ROI. So you can have these different views depending on your audience without having to do everything manually in a spreadsheet that can be error prone, to automating it in Phocas and setting it up, and those users being able to consume that data whenever they want. As mentioned, it does come with these statements out of the box. So if you're wanting to see a balance sheet, you can. If you want to see it for a particular period of time, you can. So you can move around, changing the dates. You can even look at the multiple periods. So you want to see your closing balances or balance brought forward for each month on a balance sheet, you absolutely can. So plenty of functionality to produce statements and views of your data that make sense. Now, we've also got all these buttons down the left here that we can actually use. So, for example, if I wanted to just concentrate on my Australian business, I can actually focus in on just Australia. And I might want to say, show me Australia broken down by category. So I can also do things like a variance. So compare this period to last period and move through the data and look at whatever data makes sense for the question that I'm trying to answer. So being able to look at all my individual expense accounts just for Australia at a side-by-side view, but maybe just for last month. So I can move around without needing to get special reports created by the finance team. I can answer my own questions very quickly and easily. So, and for those of you that have multiple divisions, so multiple cost centers, multiple companies, where you might be running individual P&Ls per business, you no longer have to do that within Phocas. So we can consolidate all of this together. We could do them individually, or if you want to have it consolidated as well as side by side, we can actually compare our three companies in my instance against each other. So we can set them as headers across the top. And when I come to my profit and loss statement, here's my consolidated view, and here is the side-by-side view of each of my businesses. So I can actually do a side-by-side comparison with the click of a button. This all exports very nicely. We include all the calculations and formulas that you see here. So if you want to use it externally and change some numbers, all the calculations will follow it. So that's a bit of a look at the financial statements. That might be a bit of a refresh for some people. But what the new part of our offering to you is also the ability to take that financial data that we're just looking at and turn it into a budget or use it to create a budget. So our new budgeting and forecasting tool uses that financial data as our baseline. So you can see I've got my P&L structure here where I'm doing a January through to December budget, but I've actually based it on the transactions from 12 months in the past. So I no longer have to start with a whole bunch of zeros or anything like that. I can actually either base it on last year's actuals or last year's budget, because COVID might have really bounced our actuals around more than we wanted. So our baseline might be our previous budget. So very easy to create those. And if I want to expand these out and see, just like before, I can see all of my companies in this case. But from a view perspective, I might wish to start from a company view first. So going from company down into my P&L structure, then I'm looking at my operating expenses. Now, what you'll see here is I've actually got a workflow. And that's really, really important for those businesses that want to share the load of budgeting or get people to contribute who actually have the answers to what these numbers should be. We are able to now control this. So unlike before where we might have used emails and spreadsheets, we can maintain a single version of this. So bank charges, for example, might be something we need Bill, the branch manager, to actually look after. So we can actually assign that to him. And you'll notice it now goes, why? I can't make changes to this. So Bill is now in control of this line. Now, Bill might actually choose to send that to Warren. So he doesn't have to send it back to me to then send to Warren. He can then pass it on. and there's an approval process for everybody that actually touches the budget or makes a change. As the administrator, I can also choose to bring that back to myself. And if I ever want to see who actually touched a line, I can actually see all of the scenarios of who actually touched it. So we've got a complete audit trail of what actually happened. Now, that's great to be able to get people to contribute, but besides being able to come in and enter numbers and enter formulas just like we can in Excel, we want to make it easy for people to make changes. So accountancy is a good place to start. It's about $4,600 previous year. You can also see it's quite lumpy. We've got quite a few zeros in here, a lot of peaks and troughs. Now, from a budget, I might want to actually add another $10,000 to my budget. So I'm actually going to select 10,000, but it's quite lumpy. So spreading it evenly doesn't make sense. If I base it on last year's actuals, that's actually going to help me budget better. So by applying that, the zero still remains zero, but we attribute that extra amount into the correct periods based on what they had done previously. That spread feature can also be used for just not whole numbers, like adding an extra 10,000. So if we look at something like bad debt, we might not want to actually adjust it as a whole number, but actually we might want to pull something like a 5% out. So we have the ability to also increase or decrease, excuse me, numbers by a percentage. So I can actually pull 5% out in this case. So very easy to start making some changes. And besides tracking the workflow audits, we're actually also auditing every single cell. So gone are the days of somebody making a change 3 versions ago in a budget. They didn't mean to make a change. It was by accident. They saved over the top. It got imported, and now we can't remember what it was without trawling through emails to find that previous version. We're able to now actually see who changed it, when they changed it, what they changed it to, and what, more importantly, what it had been previously. We can also leave comments. So we can put a comment in to any of the cells. It will snapshot the time it was made and the value it was made against, making it very easy to explain what some of these changes actually are in our budget. So making very quick and easy changes to our budget, whether it's an operating expense or COGS or whatever the case may be, is very easy. It's also easy to get other people involved in our budget. But we might actually want to do more than just adjust things like expenses. So we've got our income lines here, and we can use those same spread features. Maybe we just want to grow revenue by 10%. But we know that that might be also a bit too broad. Maybe there's more detail to that we need. So because we're connected to, we're in the Phocas ecosystem, and we may have already connected to the sales data in SAP, we can actually bring that data in to our budget process. So I've actually connected my UK and my US business to the actual sales data. So it's not just a single revenue line now. If I actually expand this out, you can actually see I actually have the reps and what they had done previously in the previous year. And if I expand this out again, I can actually even see the products that they sold. So, and because we've still got the ability to control our workflow, I can actually assign this off to the particular rep and get them to budget their numbers by period, by product group, or maybe it's by customer, completely up to you. But if you really think about what we're showing here is you can now actually ask the people that actually know what they're going to be able to do to start entering in their budget numbers and actually have that flow, not just into their budget, but into ours. As a finance team, we actually are now getting a finance budget. So we are getting sales data driven by input from the sales team. So we get the numbers we need, but our sales team's work is not just done for the purpose of the finance team. They can actually publish this back into their sales data. So the finance team and the sales team are working to the same budget. So finance aren't expecting $2.2 million from a department, and the department thinks it has to hit 1.8. And we're never going to really balance. This really gets us around those issues. But when we talk about budgeting, often reps won't think about budgeting as a revenue number. They might think in quantity. So we can actually introduce things like quantity. So I can actually start to input, well, I think I can sell 2,000 in this particular period. And I can actually bring across a calculation that is using the average value that I maybe sell within that period for illumination products. You can bring in any number you want, but this really allows us now to ask somebody to budget the way they think about it, whether it's revenue or units or whatever the case may be, and still get a budget number that makes sense to us. So a rep coming in and putting in their numbers now starts to populate not only our sales budget, but our finance budget as well. So really, really easy functionality to get people involved in the budget process at a level that makes sense. All that security and governance flows through this. So people will only see the data that is relevant to them. If they're not allowed to see wages and commissions or something like that, they just won't see it. So you've got very, very granular control, but it means you can unlock that budget process or share the load of building a budget with everybody that could actually contribute and add value to our budgets. Now, so what we've covered so far is looking at adding things like operating expenses or doing spreads or entering in numbers, to bringing in data from different sources. So bringing in data from sales or purchasing or inventory, whatever we need to use, bringing actual data to enable us to do more accurate budgeting. But we also can actually do things like headcount. So this is a new part of our offering that goes beyond just looking at our operational data, but start to look at our HR or our people data. So we can actually bring in an import from a payroll system, whether it's using an SAP product or if it's something you manage in a external system or whatever the case may be. There is actually the ability to import all of your employees, what division they actually belong to, when they started, their salaries, etc. But you can also bring in new employees. So you can actually schedule new hires in the business and when you expect them to start and what salary you're actually putting against that, allowing us to actually see what the actual total value of that employee or department is. And being able to also apply adjustments. So is this particular person going to get a pay rise in September? So there's going to be a change to their salary. So we can put in when it's going to change and what it's going to change to, and that remuneration value will change accordingly. So we can make these changes as needed. But we can also, besides just doing our salary, bonuses and commissions, we can actually come in and actually set up other benefits. Might be superannuation, workers' comp. You might have as an incentive gym memberships or something like that. So you can bring in these different benefits to your employees and build a benefit plan. So you can have multiple plans. So if you have offices in the US where you have to offer a 401k, or you've got people in New Zealand where the tax rate is different to Australia. You can have these different benefit plans set up, and you can enroll your different employees in those particular plans, and it will actually calculate what that overall cost is and add it in as a total cost for that particular employee. Now, you will notice there's a little lock on this because this is quite sensitive data. So outside of the normal security that we have in Phocas, where there's a username and password that governs what somebody can see, we have another layer of security on top of this, where we have a very heavy level of encryption and a secure password that is set by the user that allows that user to access to this particular view. So someone may have access to the first two tabs, but they may not see this third tab, for example, because they don't have the password to actually log into the headcount. So your data is very secure in making sure people aren't seeing what their peers or colleagues are actually earning in your organization. Now, this data is actually tied to our GL account. So you can see all my wages are tied to a particular GL account. So any changes I'm making here are actually flowing. If I look up my wages, you can actually see these are once again being driven by that particular headcount driver. So we can actually see what changes we're making, what the impact is on our budget. So we've gone through a bit, and this is a bit of a highlight reel of some of the functionality that we actually have in our budgeting and forecasting tool. Very keen to see if there's any questions, just conscious of the time. Warren, do you have any questions there?
We did have a question. I'm not sure if the whole meeting can see it, but one of our attendees asked if the product was for SAP only or if it can be used across multiple ERP systems. And of course, it can be used across multiple ERP systems. That's probably relevant to some of our bigger customers who have, who have a few different, I suppose, systems, ERP systems in the group.
Yes, absolutely. That is correct. And it might be through acquisition, legacy systems, whatever the case may be. We can bring data from not only multiple ERPs, but multiple data sources. So sometimes a source could be sell-through or scan data that you get from a third party or logistics data, as an example. So it isn't constrained to a single source.
Yeah, I've got another question here, Craig. Can this do rolling forecasts over longer horizons, say 18-month rolling forecast?
Yes, it can. So I just did a 12-month example. You can do longer and shorter periods based on what you'd like to see. So yes, it does allow you to do much longer periods for budgets and forecasts.
Yeah. We had some questions about how many clients. I think from a leverage perspective, there's more than 15 clients that are using Phocas in answer to that question. But I think more generally speaking.
Yeah, well, the Phocas as a whole, we've got about 2,000 customers globally, 700 odd here in Australia. Of those using our financial products, there's around 200.
Excellent. Thanks, Craig. So, Craig, one of the other things that came up was about the budget source. Where does that come from? Can you upload it, for example, from an external source like Excel? Is that?
Yeah, you can. Yeah. So, budgets. While we have this budget builder as a way to generate budgets, a lot of customers obviously will already have a budget that might be in an Excel format. That can actually be introduced into Phocas and then become your baseline for using the budgeting tool going forward. Or even if you're not using the budgeting tool and you just simply want to show your Excel budget in financial statements, we can also do that. So Excel is a perfectly fine source if that's what you're already using for your budgets.
Great. And I noticed as well that one of the questions about exporting information. So I noticed you did show us that you can export information not only into Excel and PDF, but also some other formats as well.
Yeah, so the financial statements, because they've got calculations and stuff, we limit the export with calculations into XLSX because that will support it.
Yeah.
We do also support PDF for those that are building more board packs where you can include headers and footers and things like that. But we are the owners and developers of this product, so there is more functionality coming in the product as well, more around board packs and things like that, where we're going to add even more abilities around commentary and things like that.
Great. And I think that probably also answers one of the questions around the P&L template, which you did note you could modify. So there's a P&L template roughly defined by Phocas, but that can also be changed and modified.
Yeah, that comes up a bit. So we do have a very international accounting standard one template that you can use. Most customers will start with the categories they already have set up in SAP, for example, and then either clone or edit or create entire new ones from there. So if you need one, there is one out of the box. Most of the time, your existing one is going to be the starting point, though.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Craig. Look, I think I don't see any other questions in the Q&A panel. So we're probably going to end up wrapping it up there. Unless anyone has any more questions, we'll give it another 5 to 10 seconds. Otherwise, I see Craig's got my details up. Hopefully most of you already have my email address and phone number. And I'd be very happy to field in-depth questions and set up additional sessions with Craig and our team as well to go in a bit more detail and maybe answer some more questions you have and have a private session. So thank you again, everyone, for your time. Thank you, Craig, for your time and for showing us the product so nicely. And hopefully we'll hear from you soon.
Thank you very much, everybody. And thank you, Warren, for your time as well.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much. Cheers, everyone.